Alec.
Good afternoon and welcome to You and Your Business with me, Alec Drew, on 103.2 Dublin City FM. Each week, I invite an expert from the world of business to share their knowledge, insights and tips to help you with your business challenges. If there's a topic you would like covered, or if you feel you can make a contribution, please email me at yourbusiness@dublincityfm.ie, and perhaps we'll be having a chat here one day soon. My guest today has more than 18 years experience in the world of finance. He's the managing director of Symmetry Financial Management, and he's a passionate GAA fan, all from the county of Leitrim. I'm delighted to welcome Mark Solon to the You and Your Business studio. Hi, Mark.
Well, good afternoon, Alec. Thank you very much for having me on today.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm delighted to have you on. Let's talk about your last year in school. Were you the person who was academic and heading off to university, or had you other passions that lay dormant there?
That's taken me back a good few years, Alec. But my last year in school, we sat the leaving cert. So as you mentioned, I'm from lovely Leitrim. In the 90s, not many of us would have had ambitions about going to university. I'm not saying that many didn't, but it wouldn't have been to the forefront of most of our conversations about which university we would have been choosing. So I had actually started an apprenticeship in the summer after doing the leaving cert, pretty much the week after my last exam, an apprenticeship welding. And it was going really well. It allowed me to play football. I was playing competitive football for the club back home. And that would have been more of a focus for me than education and the importance of having a good leaving cert. But my parents disagreed, thankfully. And when the results came out, my dad had somehow bribed me to go to college for the first term, and he was going to cover the costs of the whatever costs associated with the first year. We went to the north, so my brother had gone to the north before me, and it was actually, at the time, education was free in the north. I don't know if you remember that. So there was grants and all sorts. There was grants and all sorts of things. It's the complete opposite now, to attract accommodating students north. So I ended up going up to the University of Ulster, and I picked a very particular in picking my course. It was the course my brother was studying. So I didn't give it an awful lot of thought. I think the bribe might have helped, but I ended up sticking it out. So I ended up completing my honours degree, 4 years in business and languages, which was far from the welding jobs that I was doing for the weeks and months beforehand. So
it must have been interesting, because I mean, at least in welding, I know as an apprentice you're not getting paid a lot, but you are getting money into the hand every week. So how were you managing it as a poor student?
Yeah, well, sorry, on the welding side, the overtime was absolutely savage. So a lot of the work we were doing was away, piggeries up in the Donegal, Monaghan and Cavan area. So you would have been away, for 2 or 3 nights during the week, not impacting on training, which was important. So it was always working around that. In terms of college, then went to college, and wasn't any massive change, because I've been working probably since I was I'd have to ask my dad to give me the exact age, but definitely from 11 or 12, possibly younger. My dad managed marts in the area, so we were working in the marts from a very, very young age, and continued to doing that. We used to get the bus back down into Enniskillen on a Friday evening. My mum would pick us up. You laugh about it now, but straight to the mart for 5 or 6 o'clock on a Friday evening, and you could have been there till midnight, and then back over there 5 or 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning, right through till the early hours of the Sunday morning on the busy mart days. So again, savage money for a student, where you could have been working 20 hours in that period of time. A lot of overtime came with that as well, and I did that for the majority of my college years, so every weekend possible.
Right.
And it was quieter in the summer months. With marts tend to be quieter.
Sure.
And because farmers are off making hay, literally.
Yes.
The summer months, then we had a traditional Irish music band. So my dad was a musician on the side, wherever he got the time. But so we had a band, and that was weekends then during the summer around the towns and villages in Leitrim, Cavan,
Yeah,
maybe
fantastic.
Roscommon to a lesser extent. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that
you're getting around. I must say, the Marts must have been a massive educational journey for you.
brilliant education.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
as a child being brought around and seeing what and observing everything, and you know, kids like sponges, you must have learned so much.
Yeah, yeah, like we did everything in the marts from, where the cattle would have come in, right through to taking money off farmers at the counter, as you got older. So, balancing books, etc. So it was a massive experience, massive exposure to the whole thing. So, but just because dad ran the place, we still had to earn the respect of all the staff. It wasn't just a matter of, you're there because of who you know. It was very much you're there because you've earned it. Because would have been menial jobs you could have been doing as well. But we did everything, and the knowledge and the experience, just purely from point of view of growing up quite quickly, quite young, definitely stood. It's a unique environment. So anyone that has a farming background or experience dealing with farmers, I have the utmost respect for their career, for the demographic, and I loved every minute of it. Absolutely. I've only got brilliant memories of those years.
Yeah, and apart from the sort of educational process too, there's a baptism of, you know, learning to communicate,
Yeah.
and you know that there's always a bit of ribbing going on and things like that, and you need the thick skin as well. So you develop all of these things in one fell swoop.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It was very much, slagging, 24/7 when you're in that environment. And sometimes you weren't sure if they were slagging or they were actually, starting you. But they, honest to God, but they, no, it was, you kind of knew then you were getting tips, especially, on the busy Saturdays. You would have been collecting cattle for farmers and they would have looked for you. And, they would have been giving you a few quid then for rounding up their cattle.
Yeah,
Man,
there we go.
jobs that
Networking.
never jobs I would never put my kids into, like the environments we would have been in and the stuff we would have been getting up to. But it was, and then Christmas with turkeys and
Yeah.
again, hopefully no vegetarians are listening in, but you would have had turkey marts and turkey sales then on Saturdays, in the week, Saturdays
Yeah, of
leading up
course.
to Christmas, and our job was to pick the turkey and you know give it to the purchaser in the way they wanted it. So I won't delve any deeper than that,
I
basically. But
think, yeah, I think you're giving us enough detail there. Hell, we might have too much of a genteel audience here.
yeah,
In terms of, yeah, so I mean, networking was obviously a big part of that. But then you were going to move on to more the genteel world of college, and it was business and language, if I'm not mistaken, that you kind of took as a joint subject.
yeah. So the course was international business with languages, and I had studied German at school, and I was actually quite good at it.
Right.
Um, so I ended up studying Spanish and German. Again, I can't remember why I picked the subjects. There was probably a box that had to be ticked, but that was it. And then it was obviously business, and IT was part of the business modules. So completely different environment, but it was still school. So I was only out of school in the June. You did the leaving cert, and then I think it was around October we started. So obviously I had 3 or 4 months where we were working, and then into the student life for 4 years, basically. So totally different kettle of fish. So it's the first time you're responsible for yourself. You're responsible for your own time. I wouldn't have been a huge drinker. Going to college, I certainly wasn't a huge drinker. But the social life and the social element was new, and it definitely was all consuming. So I think
Yes.
that's why I passed through the first term and into the second term. I'm not sure how many days I actually attended the college, as opposed to having the crack with new people that I'd met and people
Sure.
who I'm still friendly with today.
And but I think a great focus has always been sport, because it does kind of tear you away from the mad lifestyle to a certain extent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, I played football for the college as well. So, and that would have been where we would have had a lot of camaraderie, and you would have had the freshers, but I think
Yeah.
again the senior football from the very first year. So it was brilliant exposure. You're dealing with, and the thing about college is, while you went in there, 17, 18 years of age, you were dealing with guys who might have been mature students. I mean, I remember there was a couple of lads from Dublin who at the time were old, in their 20s. They had gone off working and traveling. There might have been a guy in his mid to late 20s who now would have been young, but at the time you were dealing with guys who would have been much older than you, and it was first time you would have been in that type of environment. So coming from quite a sheltered culture, agricultural, country background to living in a city. I lived in Derry,
Yeah.
and some of the course was up in Coleraine, so you're commuting between Coleraine and Derry. But it was, it was eye opening, definitely. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it was great. I've fond memories of Coleraine, I must say, as a child. All right, you're going to take this sort of business and languages and do a bit of traveling and do something with it. So where did that start off to? And before you answer that, I should just say, if you're joining us now, you're listening to You and Your Business with me, Alec Drew, on 103.2 Dublin City FM, where my guest today is Mark Solon. And we're just talking about Mark, having done business language in college, is now going to take those skills somewhere else. So tell us more.
Yeah, so part of the college was, or part of the course at the university was, did I call it? It was a year abroad, Erasmus a year. So that was in Spain. I spent that in a town. Actually, we had two stints, Santiago de Compostela, for those of you that are familiar with the Camino, in the north of Spain, and then a year in La Coruña. So again, for those football aficionados, Deportivo La Coruña, and they would have been at the height of their powers when I was out there. So, which was a fantastic experience, because coming from a sports mad background, obviously no GAA presence out there. I got stuck straight into the soccer environment when I got out there, and made friends with the guys living out there who I'm still friends with today, and we communicate with on a fairly regular basis via LinkedIn, and I follow their career and how they're getting on. But the stint in Spain really opened my eyes to living abroad. I had it was the first time where I wasn't going home at weekends.
Yeah.
You were away for a prolonged period of time, and I absolutely loved it. I loved the culture. I loved the people. The Northwest it has a very close connection with Ireland, because it's quite Celtic. Again, for any of you that know your history. And of course, I had a Irish music background, so we used to go down to the pubs in the old town and play music during the evenings, and that went down really well. And you are very quickly received in. While we were on an Erasmus year, and there was lots of foreign students from Germany, obviously others from Ireland, the UK. Most of my friends would have been based from Spain, so your language came on quite quickly.
Yeah, very good.
First radio interview was actually on Spanish radio.
Oh, very good.
Paddy's Day, 1998, I think it was, where one of the chaps who I've befriended on the Deportivo fans club was like yourself, Alec, had a radio slot and interviewed me about Irish history, and actually had me playing Irish music on radio. So
fantastic.
It was a great experience. So, and that led on then to obviously finishing my degree, and I landed a job in the IT sector. So I didn't start working in the finance sector. So back in the early 90s, we were at the dot-com bubble, for those of you that remember what the dot-com bubble was.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Fortunes were made and fortunes were halved.
Lost. Yeah, very quickly.
Yeah. So I ended up working for smaller companies that were subsumed into a company called Adobe, which thankfully still exists today. Those of you familiar with PDF. So I wangled my way, or worked my way into working for Adobe. I lived in Germany for just over a year and a half, in a place called Dusseldorf. So they had an office there, but with 9/11, that brought that office to a close. So it was 9/11 obviously had a massive impact on that space, as well as just the dot-com bubble had more or less come to an end around that time. And I spent a year in Germany, almost a year and a half in Germany, and then moved to London with the job. So I had a choice of moving to Munich or London, and I can't remember the reason why I ended up moving to London. And sometimes I wonder, was it a good move or a bad move? But again, we are where we are. And spent a year in London, so working out beside the airport there, Heathrow Airport.
Yeah. Well, what a fantastic sort of journey. And again, mixing with various cultures and how you integrate with them and adapt to a lot of their habits and things. What a fantastic experience that so many people miss out in their lives.
Yeah. No, I'd encourage anyone that's listening, that you've young family, to try
Let
and
them
get
loose. Cut
ignite
them
that
loose. Let
interest
them
in
go.
traveling.
Discover
Yeah,
the
yeah,
world.
yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I still came home. Ironically, it wasn't expected that I would be the one of our family who actually ended up living back home. But c'est la vie. But where my goal was never to actually return to Ireland. I took a sabbatical from Adobe to travel for a year, and ironically, it was off the back of my first good financial decision, where I bought shares in a small company. Some of you might have heard of Apple, and I ended up making a few quid, and I was able to basically go traveling for a year. So without the requirement to work. Now I
Wow.
did, but it was mainly voluntary stuff and traveling, and I developed an interest and a passion for surfing at this stage, and I ended up traveling South America for 3 months, over to Asia for quite a few months, Africa, and spent some time, not as much time as most people, in New Zealand and Australia. So we
Wow,
had
you certainly got around.
packed it in. Yeah, absolutely packed it in. So it was a year to remember. Yeah. So,
Right, excellent. My goodness me. All right, so the lure of home was there, so you're going to be brought back.
yeah, I came back to Ireland and wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Had, probably the hippie attitude. Came back from traveling for a year, and thought I knew all the answers, and I ended up sub teaching, believe it or not, while I was trying to make up my mind, back in the school where I originally went, in Mohill,
Oh, wow.
in County Leitrim. Yeah, so the principal welcomed me in with open arms, and I believe she's still principal there, and I spent a few months subbing in German, teaching German, which was easy for me, and IT, which was also easy for me, trying to teach kids how to type and that type of stuff. But I just realized quickly it wasn't for me. So the pull there wasn't there for me for education. So I was putting my name out there for jobs back in the UK, in London. Actually, I had anticipated going back to London and maybe further afield.
Sure.
And I can't remember how I came about a trainee job with a company called Cormac Group. And they, at the time, had a renowned training program for the financial space. So I ended up getting offered a job there, and I ended up going in directly myself. How I came about the job was a recruitment company, but they talked me out of it. So they lost out in their shekels because I applied directly. Yeah, and I got offered the job. I got offered a spot on the training course. They didn't think it would suit me. Maybe it was the hippie attitude that I came back with.
Yeah.
And I went into Cormarket, and it was a 3-month training program. And the best description I can give is, there used to be an ad where there was a guy who stood up in the bus and says, "I don't know what a tracker mortgage is."
I
And
remember
I
that,
was
yeah.
one of those people. I went in literally green in terms of my knowledge of the financial services world. And 3 months later, I came out, thinking I was a hot shot,
Wow.
and sent off to provide financial advice and sell products and services to the public sector, which is what their speciality is. And I actually ended up working there for the best part of the next 10 years. I think it was just over 9 years there, and worked my way up from what was called a trainee financial consultant to being one of the senior managers running a number of the sales teams. So
Fantastic. And if you're just joining us now, you're listening to You and Your Business with me, Alec Drew, on 103.2 Dublin City FM, where my guest today is Mark Solon. Mark, certainly in terms of Cormarket and starting with an organization with a fine reputation, there must have been a lot of exams, because that whole world was about to change in terms of regulatory. And
we lived through that change, yeah. So in terms of exams, I think I was studying up until about 2010.
wow.
So, but I kept wanting to learn, kept wanting to qualify. I quickly identified that I liked the financial services sector, whereas in the IT space, you have a lot of people that come and go in the IT space. You're selling products for different companies and CRM systems and software, etc. And then you have the IT contractors who are coders or programmers, and they have the language speciality. I had no interest in the coding side of things. I did look at it earlier in that career, but was more a people person. And in terms of the IT sales side of things, that was where I thought I was going to get back into before I landed the job with Cormarket. But the what I liked about the company was their focus on education and learning, and progressing. Like literally every week we were training. There was somebody coming in, to cover in some education topic from a learning perspective. So huge focus on that, as well as the exams you had to do externally, and any exams you wanted to do once you were QFA, what's called qualified financial advisor status. Any subsequent exams you wanted to do, they were wholly behind it. So I was doing tax exams, I was doing financial trading exams, things that weren't necessarily required for the job, but because I had an interest and I was developing a passion for it. So
Well, there we go. And I mean, isn't it amazing when you find something that you've a real passion for, how much time you're prepared to invest of yourself in it,
yeah, time actually, time is a commodity, as you will agree, but a lot of people waste a lot of time. Whereas I think when you do find something you have an interest or a passion in, it becomes your time. So it's easy then to say, well, okay, I'm not, you don't fancy going out late on a Friday night because it's going to impact your Saturday morning, or you're not going out on a Saturday evening because you want to, you want to study something, you want to learn something, or you want to, watch a documentary, or you want to actually educate yourself in particular areas. So I actually found it easy because I did have an extreme interest in it, and it kind of led me on. Then I was in there, as I said to you, for 04 to 2013, and over that time, then I started to develop a passion. Thinking I wanted to do this for myself.
Yes, and why not?
But I do it for myself. Again, coming from that background as a kid, where we had our own band, and you were, while we were working, it was always instilled in you that work hard and don't be afraid to take risks. And so that kind of led in the middle of the depths of the recession. So if you remember back to what 2013, 2012, 2013 was like.
I do, unfortunately.
Yeah, for a lot of people. And I had a conversation with my parents that I'm going out here now to set up my own business. My dad, ironically, was behind me. He was there saying, don't tell me, mum, I'm go for it and see how you get on. But my mum, who was a career nurse, public sector, NHS in her case, she worked in an order her entire career.
Pension guaranteed and all of the bits.
Guaranteed pension for life, all of that. You have a job, you're doing well. What in the name of the Lord are you doing, giving all that up to go working for yourself? But anyway, off I went, set up a company with an ex-colleague of mine, and that was the first foray into business. And I exited that company at the end of 2017 and set up Symmetry Financial in 2018. And we've been trading pretty much solidly since 2018, growing the business from 2 staff at the beginning to we've 11 staff now and counting. And yeah, it's as I said, when you find something you're interested in, you become good at it. And
I mean, in terms of the financial marketplace, and there's a lot of players in there. Let's talk about Symmetry and what you're offering and what makes you sort of different from your competitors.
I suppose at face value, we're not really offering anything different. In that, it is the pool of financial services in Ireland is quite small in terms of what is available to be offered. Whereas, if you compare the banking sector in Ireland and the lending sector in Ireland, there is literally only half a dozen to a dozen serious players in that space.
Right.
If you compare that to the UK, where there are literally hundreds of players in that space. So, whereas in the UK, you have to specialize in dealing with a select number of those providers, and that can backfire in terms of, you back these 10 companies and it doesn't work out, or they make wrong decisions. Whereas in Ireland, you tend to deal with them all. What differentiates us, we would think, is the service that we provide our clients.
Right.
In that it's a hands-on approach. For anyone that is familiar with us, or that knows our brand, it's education first. So we have an approach with our clients that it's about educating you, so you have a clue about what you're actually engaging in. So that's where it starts. So that's the foundation, I would call it.
Sure.
And then the building blocks come on top, and the building blocks are what it is that individual is engaging us for. Whether it's as simple as a saving plan for their child. In 20 years' time, they want to send them to the same education that I was lucky enough to avail of, and take that stuff for granted. Or it is, an individual that is retiring, or somebody that wants help for their elderly parents in terms of how they handle their finances, or it's a couple that are going through a separation and a divorce and how that's going to play out, or your first time buyer looking to make their way through the myriad of decisions that they have to make in buying their first home. We are very much all about holding the hand through that process, a point of contact for that process, and as I said already, educating them. We try not to make the decision for the client, where that's the irony of our industry. So if you deal with more, if you think about the way it works in Ireland, if you bank with AIB, or I'm just picking AIB, but let's say Bank of Ireland or Permanent TSB, or the two players, Ulster Bank and KBC, were recently left. If you bank with them and you engage them for their services, which a lot of people do,
yes,
they are only getting a spectrum of their services. So AIB only can offer AIB mortgages, for example, or the products that AIB sell in terms of pension products. Whereas a good broker should be able to say, yeah, these are the AIB products, these are the Bank of Ireland products, these are Permanent TSB products, and these are the other lenders that you may never have even heard of, their products, and this is how it's going to work for you. Same for protection, same for pension, same for investments. One size does not fit all. It is the mantra that we would operate on, and we educate you, give you the options, and try and have you make that decision.
And I think that's very important, because there's such a myriad of offerings out there, and at least you're in a position to give independent advice, which doesn't tie you to one person. I suppose in the last 30 seconds, believe it or not, that we've got, maybe you'll just tell people how to contact you and where to find out more about the company.
Yeah, thanks for firstly, thanks for the interview. I bringing up many memories from my youth, my past. So the contact is our website, obviously. So symmetryfinancial.ie and SYMMETRY financial.ie, and the office number is 016831673. And those of you that are watching online can see the details on the background that we have set up. So.
Okay, then. Well, a special thanks to our guest today, Mark Solon, for coming into the You and Your Business studio. Thanks also to Sam on Sound. The podcast of today's show will be available on dublincityfm.ie from tomorrow. Thank you for your company. And please remember to join me, Alec Drew, again next week at the same time, 1 o'clock, right here on 103.2 Dublin City FM for another edition of You and Your Business.